Hey, hello again, and welcome back. Thanks for joining me for the next episode in this build of the Halcyon Aliens Power Loader. And you remember last episode I began the build on this power loader I've had sitting for a while, and I worked on the two arms and one of the two legs, which I've done here. And I went through and assembled them, painted them, did the decals, did all the weathering and detailing, and got the arms ready, and also this one of two legs I got ready. It was brought to my attention from one of my YouTube viewers that Adam Savage actually released a video the exact same day I did of the prop power loader, and I noticed in watching his video there were these black tabs on the end of the pinchers, so I went and I painted mine black to match the real prop as well. Then I also noticed there were these red triangles pointing forward and backward for the controller, so I added those in on my arms here. And then you'll also notice there's it looks like a telephone cord, coiled cord here coming from the bottom of the joystick controller going into the arm. So I ordered this prop telephone off of Amazon, and I cut this little cord that comes off the prop telephone, cut it into two halves. Each half is the perfect length, and I have it here, and I'm just going to drill a hole in the bottom of the joystick and attach the one end here and put a hole and attach it to the arm here. And I've gone and I've done that and glued it into place, so I have the coiled cable coming out of the joystick running into the arm. So now it's time to go ahead and move on to the main body here. I've done some sanding already, just from using the glue and sanding down the seams. It feels pretty smooth already. And I've sanded down these little areas here on the sides. So I've gone ahead and shot this with some primer, did a little more sanding to cover up the seams, and it looks really clean at this point. I'm happy with the way it's turning out. Of course, this seat back will cover up the seam down the center here, so that won't be needed to be sanded down. And this I'll paint later. And I also added some putty here in the back. They did not connect together well, so I added some putty, and I'm gonna sand it down at an angle to make it kind of beveled. And you can see here I've sanded it down, painted it. It's a little rough. I'm gonna sand down a little more and smooth it out, but it'll just give it a nice beveled look and look like it's one piece. So I've also gone and given this a coat of the haze gray and the AK Worn Effects chipping fluid. So now I'm ready to go ahead and airbrush on my Tamiya flat yellow. And just like the arms and legs, I'm just going to go ahead and spray over the entire body section here with this flat yellow and get a nice coat over the entire body section here. And I've got that done. Then I went through with the Q-tip like in my first video and did some chipping around the edges and around various parts of this body section here. And you can see all that chipping that I've done. Then I've gone and I've given this a clear coat, Tamiya clear coat, to protect the paint, and so that I can do some more weathering. But first I have the clear piece here, and I have this 6mm LED that I want to use to light the top caution light. And I have these 0402 SMD LEDs that are yellow, and I'm gonna glue 5 of them around the exterior of this 6mm LED and have them go in sequence to make it look like it's rotating around the LED, and then I'll insert it into this caution light housing here. So I've sanded down and cut off the end of the 6mm LED, and I'm going to use some of my micro crystal clear as a glue, and then I'm just going to take these 0402 SMD LEDs and just put them in place around this 6mm LED and even spacing. And here you can see I've got all 5 of my 0402s glued around the outside of this 6mm LED housing. and they're pretty evenly spaced, and I'm using 5 because that's how many pins I have on my trinket, and then the housing will just go inside this. So I've got this wired up to my trinket temporarily just to test to see if it's going to work, and I'm going to turn it on here, and boom, the lights are rotating around the housing, which I'm liking the way that's working, and then they'll just fit inside this caution housing here, and it looks like they're rotating lights. And this is the sketch I have done for the rotating lights if anybody wants to freeze frame and get a look at this. Then I've gone and I've soldered the grounds together, marked them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and soldered the reds together. And I'm going to pull them through with these 2 wires that I have left in here since the 90s, and I'm just going to use that to pull them through to the bottom part. So what I've done here is I've soldered all of my grounds to one of these wires here, and then I'm just going to carefully start to pull it through top of the body here. Pull it carefully so I don't rip any of the wires or pull any of them off the solder, and then just pull it out the bottom section here like so. Then I'm going to do the same with my hots, and I'm just going to pull them through the bottom. So now I'm just going to pull the LED down to roughly where I want to position it, get it into a spot where I think it's going to be correct inside the caution housing. And then I'm going to take some of my regular old Elmer's glue here, and I'm just going to put some Elmer's glue around the base of the LED, around all the wires, and just glue it into position at the top of the body here. And you can see I've got it all glued down here in the top. And then I've got my wires coming out the bottom. And then I've weathered and beaten up the whole body section, and it is now basically done and ready to go. So now we're going to move on to the leg here. This is the other leg. The wires are going to go through here for the wiring of the caution light. So what I need to do is I need to cut out a little chunk here on this part, and I've got that cut out so that it won't pinch the wires when they're coming through the little hole that I'm going to drill. And then I need to drill a hole out of the bottom of the foot for the wires to come out into the base. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that with my X-Acto blade here, and you can see the hole. So I have the leg here. I'm going to put the wires through this hole where it attaches to the body, just for a fitting here. And then the wires I'm just going to run down here so that they don't get pinched. Then I'm going to take the other half of the leg, and it will fit right over the post, and the wires should fit through that little section I cut out with no issues. And there we have the leg together, and then the other leg will fit right here on this side. And that's the pose it will be in when it's standing. The right leg is slightly ahead of the left leg. Position the body upright, and I'm going to go ahead and glue this new leg into position and finish it up while glued to the body. So I've got the leg glued. I took that other half off, and I have the wires taped down. I'm going to take my little set of 5 resistors here, solder them to the hots, and then glue it into place inside this half of the leg. And I've gone and I've soldered the wires to the resistors, and I'm going to go ahead and cover up each one with some of my liquid electrical tape. And then I'm going to use some liquid electrical tape, and I'm just going to glue these into position inside the leg here. So now I've got these 3-pin connectors that I'm going to use to power it all. There's 2 3-pins, 6 total. All of my hots are going to go to 1, and then I have 5 grounds which go to the 5 pins on the trinket, so 6 wires total. So what I've done is I've soldered each one of my ground wires to the corresponding wire on the pins of the connectors. And then I also did the same thing. I used my liquid electrical tape to cover up the solder joints. And then I've secure down all the wires together here inside the leg. And again, there's 5 grounds coming out to the trinket for the 5 pins, and there's 1 power line for all of the resistors powering the positive side. Those go to the 2 3-pin connectors, which will then go to the trinket. So I'm going to do a quick test here before I seal up this leg. Make sure my lights are working, just test them individually, make sure they're firing up. And all of my lights are working. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue these connecting wires down. And you can see all the wires are secured inside this half of the leg and there with the connector wires. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my other half of the leg and glue it into place on this half. The whole purpose of doing it this way was because I needed to run the wires to the leg, but I want to be able to sand down and clean those seams. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue on the caution light housing here to the top of the body, since I know the LEDs are working. And I'm just going to use a little bit of my Tamiya thin cement here and get that secured down to the body. And now that I have the leg fully together and glued, I have sanded, primed, etc. several times until I have a nice clean seamless leg here again, like I did on the first video. And as before, I've given it a coat of Tamiya TS32 Haze Gray for the dark gray undercoat. And I've also gone and given it several coats of the AK Worn Effects chipping fluid. So now I'm going to go ahead and paint this leg with my Tamiya flat yellow. Then I'm going to go ahead and once again put some little bit of water on here, soften it up, and then go around the edges with a Q-tip and start to chip away edges and make it look like there's damage from bumping into things and being hit from things. And just go all around the edges of the leg, a little bit in the center of the leg I'll do as well, until we have what you see here. We have a chipped up, damaged power loader leg. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply the decals like I did with the first leg. I have several decals that go on here, and fortunately these I was able to salvage out of my decal sheet, so these are going on rather nicely. Then I'm going to go ahead and put on this actuator on the back, which I had previously attached a decal to. Glue that into place with some Tamiya fine cement. I'm going to go ahead and scuff up a little bit of this decal here around the edges that match up with the dings. Then I'm going to go ahead and put on the other 2 actuators which go on the front of the foot and attach to the leg. I'm going to get those glued and put into position. And there we have another leg, which I have also gone through now and done more washing and weathering using my pastels. So washing with some of that brown again. Pastels, I've used the soot, a little bit of light sand in the black areas, and just dirtied it up, weathered it up, and make it look all used and damaged. And go ahead and peel off the tape from the body portion here. Then I'm going to go ahead and take my other leg and attach that to the body. And on this leg, I'm going to add the strap like I did on the other leg from my part 1 video. Now it's time to move on to the seat. Had a little primer overspray from something else. And then I've also got the little torch here that goes on the side of the body. So I've gone and I've given both of these a coat of my Tamiya fine gray primer. The seat and this little blowtorch here. Then I've gone and I've given them both a coat of my Army Painter Black. I know I use this paint a lot, but I really like this paint. It goes on so smooth, it looks really nice, and it's a nice black. Then I'm going to go ahead and give both of them a flat clear coat, which I have done, just to seal the paint. And now on the seat, there should be some seat straps that hold Ripley in. If you look here, you can see the blue straps with that buckle in the middle. So I'm going to do this from scratch. I have some 1/8 inch blue ribbon here. I'm going to use this blue ribbon for the seat straps. And then I've got a bunch of spare photo etch that I always keep from all the kits that I work on in case I ever just need to find little greeblies that I can use on other kits. So I'm going to look through all this photo etch and see if there's some little pieces I can use to make the buckles and all. And then I'm going to cut this ribbon to length and put a buckle in the middle. Then I've also got a bunch of sprues that I keep leftovers from all my models that I do. Car models, Star Wars models, whatever it may be. So first I'm going to use some light sand and I'm going to weather up this seat just a tad. Just dirty it up, make it look like people have been sitting in it. And just lightly brush it on with this dry brush here. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to use this little piece from a sprue I found, paint it black, use some of the chrome marker. This will be my buckle in the middle. I'm going to add this little piece of round photo etch I found, paint it blue, add another little piece of photo etch. I'm going to make that red, and that will simulate the red and blue buckle that was in the middle of the loader. I'm going to cut my ribbon to length. I'm going to fold up the bottom portion here and glue that together. I have this little piece that looks like a belt buckle that I'm going to use to put on the end of it. And then I have some little strips I'm going to use to put here to make it look like that's what ties down the strap. Then I'm going to take my liquid chrome marker and I'm going to go ahead and color these all chrome, make it look like they're metal straps. I've got all 4 seat belts done here, along with my buckle for the middle. Then I just glue the straps down onto the seat in the proper position, which I've done here. And then glue the buckle right there in the center of it, and it looks like the straps are buckling in. And there we have it all assembled. And it's all glued, secured. And I happen to notice my buckle is actually a little bit off. If you look at the picture here, there's like a raised area that comes down the center of it like a straight line. So I've taken off that little red piece in the middle there. And I'm going to put a larger red piece, either this or this chrome piece from a car model, and glue that to the center. I'm using this piece, sanding down the edges so the diameter of it's slightly smaller. And then I've also sanded down the bottom of it and made it about half the thickness, trying to thin it down as much as I can. And I like this piece because it has a little detail there in the center, not just a round disc. Giving that a shot of fine gray primer. Then I'm going to use this little piece of photo etch here, and I'm going to cut this guy out. And this is what I'm going to use for the center portion of the buckle. So I've got this primed. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on here, and then I'm going to secure this little piece of photo etch in the center there. Shoot that with some primer as well. Then I'm going to go ahead and color the entire thing red. I'm just using a red Sharpie, works just fine. You can see that little buckle thing down the center there. And then I'm going to glue that on instead, and I think that looks a lot better and more accurate. And I also added some chrome to the back of the headrest there. At this point, I can go ahead and take the seat and I can glue it into position onto the body. I'll push it in here. There we go. And then I'll just apply some glue in there and glue it into position on the body. And there we have it glued. I've got the legs glued in place. And now we're ready to move on to our next step. The cage that goes over the body. I had already put this photo etch in there back in the 90s. So I just gave this a shot of Tamiya Fine Gray Primer as usual. And of course, I gave it a coat of the haze gray as the base coat for the chipping. And then I also gave it some AK, the Warren Effects, and now I'm going to shoot it with, once again, the Tamiya flat yellow. And we've got that all done. I'm going to go ahead, as with the arms and legs, go through, moisten it up a little bit with some water, and then I'm going to go through and scrub away and try to do some chipping on the cage and scratches and make like it's been all beat up and worn through all the use of heavy lifting. So there we've got the cage done, and then I just need to go through and add some more paint and weathering. So I've taped up the cage, and I'm going to paint these cushion areas black, and I've gone and of course shot those with some of my Army Painter black. And then I'm going to move on to the torch. I'm going to use a little bit of Tamiya chrome silver, and there's just this little section here underneath the tip that is supposed to be silver. I'm just going to hand paint that in there. Then I'm going to take some silver Tamiya pastel, and I'm just going to do a little bit of light rubbing over the raised areas of it just to pick up some of the detail and highlight and make the stuff stand out on there. And you can see how it's picking up the edges, and it just makes it pop a little bit, the detail, and makes it stand out and look a little more interesting than just flat black. And you can see that side there and that side there. So if you look at this screenshot here, there are red and black wires coming out of the torch, and they're strapped to the edge of the cage. So I want to secure my torch as well. I want wires to come out of the bottom. So I've got some 30 gauge wire here that I'm going to use, red and black. I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom of this torch. I'm just going to go ahead and take this drill bit. Not exactly sure of the size. I just looked and it looks like the wire should fit. So yeah, the wire fits right inside there like so. But I need to do 2 little holes since there's 2 wires. Then I'm going to add some black paint in there so you don't see them. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the wires into position here on the bottom of this torch, and then glue them in place with some super glue. Then I'm going to go ahead and glue the torch to the side of the cage here, and you can see it fits right over this section right here. Then I'll just glue that into place with some Tamiya fine cement. Then I got my wires here which run up the cage, so I've taped it down, and for the straps here, what I've done is I've cut some super thin strips of electrical tape. I'm just going to wrap it around here. And there you have all the straps. They are super glued on the backside so that the tape won't unravel. And then I'm going to go through and do some weathering using some light sand pastel around the black areas, and then soot all over the yellow areas. Then I'm going to go ahead and take the cage and secure it to the body here. Just push this on carefully. Don't want to mess anything up here. And there where I have that glued into place as well, and it's looking rather nice. Then I've drilled a hole in the back for the 2 wires to go through from the torch. It does connect to the back side here, and they fit right inside that hole. But I have this piece of tubing. I'm going to shave off just the slightest piece to put over this. And I've cut a teeny little piece, painted it with some Army Painter black. Then I've given it a shot of some Tamiya chrome silver here. And basically I'm making a little connector port where these wires or tubes would go into. I'm just going to shove them in there, then push them in the hole in the back. And then I'm going to glue my little makeshift connector to the back of the body here. And there we have it going into the back. And finally we'll move on to the base here. I bought this online. These are 12th scale, just like some type of sci-fi floor paneling. I did find some that was a replica of aliens, but it was extremely expensive, so this will work just fine. Just gives it that grill look flooring there. And I'll just glue all these together. So what I'm going to do is I have some felt here with a sticky back. And I'm just going to go ahead and place these on the felt one at a time and get them all together. And I got them all done here. They're secured pretty tightly. Obviously it bends a little bit there. So now that I got them in position, I'm going to go ahead and glue them together with some Tamiya cement. Then I'm going to cut away the rest of that. That way it looks black underneath and that felt keeps it dark. I've decided that I'm going to change the shape of this a little bit. I'm going to cut off these edges here. It's kind of like an octagon looking thing. And I'm just going to go ahead and shave these off freehand with a Dremel. This is just one of those sanding grinding discs. Cut that off, and here we have the base now. I'm actually going to put it in this position. I like the way that looks. So I also have this 6mm by 6mm acrylic square rod that I'm going to put along the bottom, put that around the edges, and this will give me room for my trinket. So I've cut away some of the felt around here so that my square rod can be glued to the underside of the base, and it'll go right there. And I'm just going to cut my tubing with this miter cage that I've got here, little mini cage. And I've got it cut into shape here. And then I'm just going to secure it with some super glue right there. And I've gone and I've done the 4 sides with those miter cuts. And I got 4 more pieces to put in on these corners. And I've gone ahead and I've cut those with just straight cuts, and I'm going to glue those into position. And there we have the whole framework on the underside. Got a spot cut out here for my trinket. Trinket will just lay and get secured right inside here. So I've sprayed the entire thing with Tamiya Fine Gray Primer. And then of course I've gone and shot the entire thing with some Army Painter Black. And then you can see that I've drilled a hole here, and this is so that the connectors can fit through. Then I have a rod that I cut out and drilled a hole on the right foot, and this rod fits right inside there. This is how I'm going to secure it to my base. So the rod fits right up inside there and then leaves a little bit out that'll go into the base. So I'm going to glue that into the base first. So I drilled a little hole. First one was an accident. This is going to go right here, and I'm going to glue that into position with some hot glue, which I have done. And that's nice and secure. Then I'm going to use some hot glue on the underside of my trinket here. And then I'm going to glue that into position on the underside of the base and add some more here so it can't get loose. Also added some hot glue to the wires to hold them in place. You can see on there, and there's the connectors, and then there's the hole for the other wires to come through. At this point I'm going to take my Folk Art nickel buff paint. I'm going to go ahead, I put some on a cloth, and I'm just going to go ahead and start rubbing it all over the top of this base, and I want to give it a nice metallic look, make it look like it's metallic base. And you can see I've got the base all done and painted up. I left the border around the bottom black, and it's only the the boards that are the metal look. Then I'm going to go ahead and take the connectors from the legs. I'm going to push the other leg through the rod here and mount it. Then I'm going to hook the connectors together. And now it's time to glue on the arms of the power loader. So I'm going to start with the right arm here. I'm going to go ahead and push that into position and add this actuator to the back. Then I'm going to do the left arm, same thing, glue it into position along with the actuator. And there we have both arms secured. And now we have all this tubing that's to go around the power loader, and I have this guide here. I'm supposed to cut 4 of each length of tubing, so I've got the letters corresponding to the length, and it shows in the instructions which letter goes to which part, and so you have the right length of tubing. So you just hold this tubing up against these markers here and you cut it to length. So I've gone and I've cut all the tubing into the appropriate lengths based on that chart on the back of the instructions there. Short ones and long ones. Then I'm going to go ahead and start putting the tubing onto the ends, the connector ends on the power loader, such as the arm. And then they get connected to the back of the power loader. And then I just secure it with some Tamiya fine cement here. And I've got all the tubes connected and running to all the various parts. So the model is now complete, and I present you the power loader. Hey, if you like watching my videos, please feel free to give them a like. And so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos, click subscribe.